Lindsay Davis here with Spartan Invest. I'm the CEO and co-founder. If you guys don't know Spartan Invest, we are a turnkey company operating in Central Alabama, North Alabama. And I'm really excited. I've got Aaron Chapman here with Security National Mortgage, and he is here to talk about some of the changes with Fannie Mae and their tightening up of the single family investment purchases. For a lot of our clients, we've seen a lot of changes in that process. And so say hey, Aaron. Sorry.
Hey, no problem. Thank you, Lindsay, for making this available and allowing me to be on here to chat with your clients, your team, everybody, and talk about these changes. And the change situation is something that really, it's kind of hard to help people wrap their mind around what's going on, what has actually, and why the change is going on. What's funny about it is not a lot has changed with Fannie and Freddie themselves. Where the changes come is in early March, the U.S. Treasury mandated to Fannie and Freddie that they are basically having to step back from securitizing, funding and securitizing and backing up the investor loans and the second homes. Now, in the past, about 24 to 25% of all the loans that Fannie was funding were for investors in second homes. I think it was between 15 and 16 were real estate investors. Now with this mandate that the Treasury is saying, and everybody's saying, how can the Treasury mandate on that? Well, look at our interest rates for the last year. Interest rates being as low as they were was because the U.S. Treasury was dumping trillions of dollars in through the Fed into the mortgage-backed securities to bring the rates down. Right, because we had the market freak out with COVID, because of that freak out of the market, and because our economy was starting to see potential decline. They wanted to stimulate it, and how they stimulate it by dumping trillions of dollars into the market. Well, because of those trillions, we saw money supply go up. It's just like anything: supply goes up, cost goes down. They brought those rates way down. And almost exactly 1 year, it was 2 days off of 1 year later, they come back and says, guess what? We own all the mortgage-backed securities that you're using. So we can mandate what you do with that money. And the mandate we have now is you've got to taper back your involvement in the real estate investors and second homes, because that's the wealthy people buying that. And we want you to target 93% of all your financing and all the backing loans you do and all your securitization towards owner occupied. Well, there's a misconception there that it's because there's not enough money for owner occupied that they're not buying houses. No, there's not enough damn houses is what the problem is, right? We know that from investors' perspective and from people buying houses, period. In fact, if you haven't seen it, anybody watching this, Google the YouTube video of the guy auctioning off an apple. It tells you exactly what's going on in the market right now. So one of the things that I want people to at least be able to wrap their head around a little bit is, since Fannie and Freddie are not able to play in this market anymore, there's trillions of dollars not available. So where do we go? We go to everybody else that'd be buying mortgages. We call them aggregators. Your hedge funds, your people like Goldman Sachs, your bigger banks. There's other pools being built for this. But now there's less money because there's all this government capital that was gone through the MBS or the mortgage-backed securities is not available to us presently. So where is it? We got to go to places where there's less available. So we're talking interest rates up possibly 1% higher than where they were before. Now, there's also there's going to be an appetite swing in there. They may raise the rates a little bit because they may not be able to get people to invest. They need to get them to put more money in there to fuel those pools. They may have to push the rate up. They may have to actually charge points. If points are being charged, it's not going to me. It's not going to Security National. It's going to the pools to get people to be willing to give us money for you, the investor, to be able to use for 30 years. Now, the other thing about that is you have to remember, these guys are not big players in the investor world from the past. It was Fannie and Freddie. So we're going off of Fannie and Freddie's guidelines. Now, as they're seeing these investor loans come in, they're going to be adapting their guidelines on the fly for what they feel will make them more secure, because they're now starting to get the ability to do a quality control audit or just do a deep audit on the files after they've closed. So now they're sending out memos to us all the time. We could have a loan we processed, ready to go into for final. Ready to go into closing. Then we get a memo out. We got to pull them out of closing and add that paperwork to them. It's frustrating. It's completely killing my profit margins within the company. I'm already dropping them like crazy to stay competitive with people scrambling to try and make the rates somewhat palatable. And now I'm having to process 2 and 3 times. So just know it's not fun for us.
Oh no, and I know that, and just working with you closely, I know it has not been fun. So going back to really quick what you said as far as an inventory shortage, and 100%, that is right now it is the lowest inventory that we've had since they've started keeping records, of housing inventory. That's how low our current inventory is in the single family space. And for Birmingham and Alabama, typically what a healthy market is 6 months of inventory that's available. And right now we're sitting at it's 2.1. So, even we see that every day. So we understand that the inventory shortage and how that's kind of spiraled out. So from our investor standpoint, so what are they seeing? Like so if they've got a property that is a turnkey property, they're interested in getting into real estate. They saw how stable real estate was kind of through the pandemic and wanting to kind of get in that space. What, from a lending standpoint, how has this changed them? Because like you said, it's the Treasury, it's not necessarily Fannie Mae, but they've tightened their made their restrictions a lot tighter. So what are our investors going to see?
Well, the ones who are going to be impacted the most are your self-employed investors, because there's so many nuances associated with their income. It's not cut and dry. It's not like a W-2, which is just easy to calculate and figure, hey, this is how you get paid, and we can reasonably believe that you'll continue to have that job. Self-employment, as you know and I know, that fluctuates. It can be different from one year to the next. Also, depending upon who you use for an accountant and how intricate your taxes are, it can be quite intense. Fannie and Freddie got to a point where they got really, really good with understanding all these things, and they were pretty lenient, comparatively speaking, on this. And how that came about as far as that leniency, as you go back to 2016, I got audited on over 600 files. That was one of the most miserable experiences of my existence. But by the time they were done with that full year of digging through all this stuff, because I did so many investor loans, they're like, we're good. Change how you order appraisals and we're okay, right? And change this and change that. And they were cool. And we operate under that premise for the last 5 years. Well, now with these guys, it's going to be labor intensive. And don't think just because you got a pre-qual letter that you're done. Things can change on the fly. And that's the biggest thing, is don't expect the unexpected. It's like tearing into a house to do a rehab. You can walk through it with a clipboard and get a reasonably close. But when you're talking about unknown things hidden in the walls, and now we got hit with steel prices going up. You can't even get electrical boxes, it seems like. The lumber prices going up. Heck, I watched Warren Buffett's Berkshire annual meeting, and he said, to quote, with respect to steel and lumber costs, we weren't expecting it. If a guy that smart, just completely dominates things when it comes to economics, when it comes to the markets, says we weren't expecting it, then how are you and I, Lindsay, supposed to get that figured out on our own, right? We wouldn't know this. So the one thing that they need to expect is, one, things are going to change, and they always do. But the one thing they need to take solace in is who they're working with. That's why I keep telling everybody, get the right team. It's easy to go on the internet and search for a great way. The difference is, if people have somehow, there are a few internet providers out there that still have those lower rates, is because they're lower than the 7% mandate. There's only a handful out there. But if they're lower than that 7% mandate with Fannie, with investor loans or whichever, it's probably because they don't understand them or they've never done them. So now you're putting yourself at huge risk and not being able to close whatsoever. I've seen it. A lot of people call me back a month later. It's like, I'm way behind. I can't close. Can you close in 10 days? Because if I don't, I lose my earnest money. Like, guys, I can't. I'm 45 days. I'm waiting on appraisals like crazy. If there's anything that we fight with along with your team, is appraisal turn time frames across the country. There's some markets that are taking 9 weeks just to assign an appraiser. We're not at that in Alabama, but I'm seeing that elsewhere. The other thing that the investors need to just get used to, rates are going to go up. They just have to. One of the things that the government does, or that the central bank does to quell inflation, which I'm going to share a screen here so people understand what we're up against with inflation. If you've never heard of shadowstats.com, I encourage you to go here. Shadow Stats, what it does, it goes back to the early 80s when they started tracking inflation, and they started using what was called the CPI, or the PCE, Consumer Price Index, or Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. And back here in the early 80s, late 70s, or I guess it was 1980 if we want to look at it, they were tracking everything consumers were spending money on. But then they got to a point, it's like, well, we don't have to track everything. Let's take out the volatile stuff that we cannot control with monetary policy. And as things went on, they started taking those things out. Now you see this big divergence between what people are spending money on truly over here and what the Fed is tracking. And what the Fed is tracking, they're saying even those durable things they're tracking that they can manipulate with monetary policy, they claimed this last week that inflation's at 4.1%. That's double what they're trying to keep it at with the work that they're doing. But what that means for us as the economy as a whole, we're at over 12%. So why is this a big deal? This is a big deal because the way to curb inflation is to raise rates. At some point, they will do that. This is our voice of warning to you that it's coming. Don't bitch about where the rates are today, because you're going to a year from now saying, man, if I only listened, or if I only locked a year ago, instead of saying, hey, that rate's too high, it was lower last year, don't quit that. Focus on where we are today. Will your deal make sense today? So what I want to do is one other share you something else that shows a higher rate than what you were getting last year, a $100,000 purchase, an $80,000 loan, and that higher rate of 4.5 in this example on an $80,000 loan would charge you $65,000 interest over 30 years. That's $145,925. Well, it just factoring in inflation of 7%. I'm not going to go to the full 12. I'm just going to say 7 because we spend our money differently. Over 30 years, paying $405 a month in payment for a total of $145,925 in total principal and interest over 30 years. When you factor what inflation does to the value of the dollar, it drops what your total expenses on the loan was $60,926. That's at a 4.5 rate. Remember, because inflation is eroding the dollar, you're paying back the lender with less and less money every month. Remember that. Don't pay it off early. We get to raise rents to pace inflation. So you get to get your income going up, but the lender keeps the exact same payment. Their income's going down. Keep that in mind when you're looking at this. And also remember, if you find a deal, now's the time to act on it. Not when you think rates are going down later or when price of housing are going down later. It's either a deal or it's not.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's a couple of things that I want to circle back on that you said, because you hit on so many really good points. We have experienced that with investors who are searching for lenders that have lower rates, and they end up with lenders that do not know how to lend in the investment space. And it all it does is cause turmoil towards the end of the closing process. So thank you for stating that, because that's a really good point. We've unfortunately experienced that. And I know we've had some investors come to you guys as well. I mean, like, hey, can you close this really quick because we spent so much time with this lender because they had half a percent lower, something kind of like that. That would.
And to that point is these last 12 months, you look at my team, I got a team of 32 people strategically built out for performance and for efficiency. And if in the last 12 months, we've closed 1,557 transactions for real estate investors and we still have turmoil, there's a lot of things out of our control. And this is all we do is real estate investor loans, as evidenced by the amount of business that we do. The average person in my job does 3 to 4 a month. I do 7 every day. So if we have turmoil, how is the guy who doesn't do investor loans going to be able to navigate this mess?
They don't. They don't. And when they attempt, it's very poor. So trust me, yes, find the right team. Whether it's Aaron, it's Security National's team is fantastic. We've done a lot of work with them. And again, the second point that I want to circle back on are the rates and having the right mindset. And that, yes, the market is extremely inflated right now. Lumber, cop, everything is increased. And if it's a deal, it's a deal. So don't buy stupid. We can't do that. We're not going to pass that on to our investors. So it's made our purchase, a lot more difficult. But if the return is there, then it's there. Don't wait around for the interest rate. Like, oh, well, it was, I'm going to wait and see if it goes down just a little bit, because it's only going to go up from here. I completely agree. That's a really good point to bring up. So what else? Is there anything else that we can kind of pass on? The self-employment, I'm happy you said that, because we've seen that with investor clients as well. Is there something that they could possibly prepare to maybe head off some of the closing issues, or some of the lending issues if you are a self-employed investor?
The best thing they can possibly do is go through the pre-qual process in advance of going into contract. What we do see a lot of times is people drop contracts on us before we ever even talk to them. And now now we have a clock that's ticking. And when you have a clock that's ticking and we don't know anything about you, especially self-employed person with 3 or 4 entities, and you've got a really slick CPA that you paid $10,000 a year to create this massive thing for you to save on taxes. Well, he did so well that you don't qualify anymore because you make no income because he's so awesome. But now you're 3 weeks deep into this thing because it took you that long to get paperwork from your CPA because it's such a mess. Now you paid for inspections and appraisals, and I suck because I can't get it done. Right. So what I tell everybody is take the time, stop, pause on your interest in jumping into the deal, and make sure you can get it done first. What I have employed for pre-quals, I've got 4 people to do the pre-quals. 2 of them are underwriters that have been at this since the 80s. They hate it when I say that, but because they feel dated. But if you've got 2 people, one's been doing it since 82 and 85, they kind of know a little bit about the space. And so when you submit your application, we're going to frustrate you because I'm going to demand tax returns. I'm going to demand pay stubs, K-1s, W-2s, bank statements, everything up front. So when that's all in there, and as long as your situation doesn't change, I've had way too many people make late payments midway through the deal, stuff like that, or go buy cars. As long as everything stays the same, we can be reasonably assured that we can close that deal. I want it to feel like that when you get a signed pre-qual letter from Aaron Chapman, that the only thing more secure is if I ship you a briefcase full of money and you're waiting for codes to access it at closing. That's what I want this to be like. So if I can give any advice at all, it's number 1, get an understanding of what you can do first before we even move forward. And my team, if you ask them, will tell you what's possible. Can you do 1 loan or 10, right? We'll let you know. And also go slow. Don't just say, hey, they got 10 loans, properties ready. Let's go buy all 10. Damn it, if that doesn't just kill us all. I know you felt it, Lindsay. I still have scars, and I'm not going to show them here because they're all back here, and it's not going to look good on TV or on Zoom. So it's amazing how that can come back and bite people. Step into it 1 or 2 transactions at max when you get going to get a feel for it before you barrage your way into things, right? And then, of course, the other thing is get your mind right. You're the CEO of a startup real estate investment business. You got to ensure that the people sitting at your figurative board table are much smarter than you. If you feel like you're the man that has all the answers, you are ensuring potential failure. If you have people there on the operation side like Lindsay, who can give you practical data to make decisions with, on the finance side like myself and my team, you will have the capability to get questions answered, to get decisions made with practical information, not speculation and theory.
Yeah, I completely agree. Making sure that you are surrounding yourself with the right team, the right lenders, to make this process as easy as possible. And also, one thing that we found very beneficial is getting your CPA involved in the closing transaction as well, like getting them in touch with your underwriter. And we've done that with your team as well. I'm like, hey, so they are connected as well. And if anything comes up, they're already there to answer the questions. And that way the investor's they're not acting as like a middleman kind of going back and forth, because if you are self-employed, and especially if you have multiple entities, you are really, heavily relying on your CPA for so much of that information. So getting them involved, I think, at the beginning of the process would be very beneficial as well.
That's an extremely solid point. And how you want to get them involved, just send an email to your CPA, copy your processor when they're assigned, say, hey, this is my lender, you're my CPA, please, guys, interact whatever you need. Don't make me the middleman, because most people don't speak CPA and they don't speak lender. And there's such foreign languages that those people need to talk to each other, not allow you to try and be interpreter, because sometimes what you say is way off of what's reality.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. And then we're feeling that as well. We've seen that with some of our investor clients. And that has been one thing that's been very beneficial in making the process a bit smoother, is putting them together and making them work as one. Is there anything else that you can think of that you can throw out for investors who are interested in real estate from the lending piece, Aaron, before we wrap up? I just wanted to take a really quick opportunity to kind of go through the things that we're seeing, because all of this has been relatively new in this space for us, and it's going to continue to change, like you said. But is there anything else you want to add?
The only thing else out of that, let's just make sure when we get a chance to talk, if you're coming into this space for the first time, I absolutely want to get you on the phone first. We want to talk about a lot of these things, help you unwire some stuff that, from that consumer mindset of spending money and going into debt. The easiest way to do that is just reach out to my team. You can go to my website, aaronchapman.com. You can schedule it with my assistant, Samantha.king@snmc.com or aaron.chapman@snmc.com. We'll schedule that time. Trying to call and catch things on the fly is real tough because, today Samantha booked me all the way through the end of the day. I got one open appointment that I was able to move around to be able to pull this off. But which, ultimately I schedule for one reason only. I like to ignore the whole world and focus on you. If I'm trying to do it on the fly for everybody, then I don't get anything done. A person who tries to be everything to everyone becomes nothing to no one. I decided to focus years ago, and my focus is all for you and for Lindsay and for their team.
And just to reiterate that is 100% accurate. And this is not me just blowing smoke for Aaron and his team, but that's exactly what he does. And that if you are getting into this space for the first time, if you are a first-time investor and you're going through the lending process, reach out to him because he does want to talk to you, and he will set aside the time and talk to you until you feel comfortable moving forward. He won't rush you, push you. In fact, if there's any kind of red flags or hesitation, he might even try to pull you off and like, hey, maybe you need to wait a minute, or maybe this might not be for you. So, and answering a lot of questions for our investors. So I highly recommend that if you are a new investor, and this is your first go, then yes, please reach out to him because he will take the time to talk to you. And that is very rare these days. It is very difficult. We work with a lot of lenders, and sometimes it is impossible to get one of them on the phone. And with Aaron, I can't remember a time where you weren't available for issues or something like that. So
well, that's that honestly is what keeps me in the business, because if it's all about closing loans, I would have left this crap a long time ago. That's tough. I love the conversation. And let me just end with one statement, guys. For myself, I speak for myself and Lindsay with this. We are extremely interested in your success with this. It's if you start to fail, we start to fail, and we violently oppose failure. Just know that we do not intend to see you fail. It's kind of like the gold rush of the 1800s. The people who made the most money were the guys who shouldered the picks and shovels. That's us. The difference between us and those guys back in the 1800s, we care where you're sinking your pick or shovel into ground. You need to not only find gold, but we need to find so much that you need equipment, you need trains, you need people, and hopefully you come to us to get that, because if you get that and need that, then we're successful as a result. So just know that our business is contingent upon you succeeding.
Yeah, man, that was perfect. I got nothing. I can't finish better than that, Aaron. That was perfect. All right. Thank you so much for dropping everything and doing this, because this has been something that we have seen come up quite a bit, and some clarity. So we're going to share this video with everyone and make sure that, kind of keep them in the know as much as possible. So thank you so much for jumping on last minute. I really, really appreciate it.
I'll always do anything for you guys. Thank you.
You're the best. All right. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.